Alright, so boom. As you know, this past weekend was the inaugural week of the new version of the XFL. I had the pleasure of watching 2 games live. I also live streamed here on Hot Mic and also on YouTube as well. And if you're able to catch the live streams, you saw my direct thoughts of the game. And I was able to watch the highlights of the LA taking on, Houston, and also New York taking on Tampa Bay. Although I didn't see it live, I think the highlights did tell a bit of a story, and I also heard from other individuals who saw it live. But basically, the way I feel about this particular league is completely different than the AAF. First and foremost, the production quality off of the field, the way they present the game, the sideline interviews, the interaction between, the audience and the on-field play. It feels much better than what we saw with the AAF. More importantly, it feels much more professional as well. As for the on-the-field product, you know what? The games actually had great pace. Guys looked as if they weren't, not in the NFL for no apparent reason. People looked as if, they can play football. Now, there were the good signs of ineptitude from a ton of different players where you saw whether it was dropped passes. You saw a ton in the Tampa Bay New York game. You saw a good amount in the Dallas and St. Louis game as well. You saw ineptitude on the offensive side of the ball from Tampa Bay. So we've seen different things of where you'll look like, oh, wait a minute, is this even professional? But for the most part, for all 4 games, they did a very good job broadcasting to the nation that, hey man, this league can sustain. All right, now there were a few different rule changes. You have the kickoff rule change, the 2-minute warning, rule change, and also extra points as well. I had a couple of notes that I did take while watching the game. Some things that I did like that I didn't. For example, with the kickoff, I'm a big fan of having both, the coverage unit and the protective unit. I say protective because that's your blockers. Line up 5 yards apart, and then once the person touches the football, now you have an opportunity to see if the returner really can make a play, and the blockers have to set things up. You don't have the benefit of having a running momentum in order to go and make the block. You don't have forward momentum already getting started to go and crack somebody. You got to start within 5 yards, contact, your adversary, and hold your person there. For the defender, you've got to find a way to wiggle around, the person trying to block you. And for the returner, it's on you to find the vision and find the holes. We didn't see any kick return touchdown, but it was very nice to see. I love the fact that, the kicker has to kick it, beyond the 20-yard line, or he will be flagged for illegal procedure. I am a fan of this. However, I do believe the penalty is a bit harsh. The fact that you would spot the ball at the opponent's 45-yard line. So not only do you spot them yards, because for example in the NFL, illegal procedure would be placing the ball at the 40-yard line, and you would have 60 yards to go to get into the end zone. In this case, you only have to go 45 yards and you're in the end zone. So the fact that it's already in the opponent's territory, I think that's a bit harsh of a penalty. But I love the fact that they put the oldness on the kicker to have to boot that ball deep in order for their team to not be penalized. The extra point, scenario where instead of having to go and line up for a field goal for the extra point for 1, you have 3 different options to where you can score either 1, 2, or 3 points. From the 2-yard line, it would be in the NFL, it's a standard 2-point conversion. The XFL, you have to line up from the 2-yard line, and if you score, you get 1 point. You line up at the 5-yard line, it's an opportunity for 2 points. You line up at the 10-yard line, I believe, it's an opportunity for 3 points. We did not see a 3-point conversion, if I'm not mistaken. But for the most part, I really like this. It keeps, teams having to strategize, all right. And given the fact that, it is easier to go from the 2-yard line, but it's never a give me. It's never a give me sort of situation. So if you're up by if you're up by 2, rather than going for 1 from the 2 and then making it a field goal game, you can now go for 2, make it a 2-possession game. If you're up by, let's say, 6, you can now have a situation to where I can just go for 1 from the 2-yard line, make it a 7-point game. I could go for 2 and then force the opposing team to not only have to score, but also have to convert on a 2-point conversion from the 5. Or you can go from 3 and then make it a 2-possession game. Well, granted, it's not really a 2-possession game, so you have an opportunity to get upwards of 9 points on a certain drive. So it's a lot of strategic stuff being done. I love that. And last but not least, the 2-minute drill, which I believe these are probably the 3 different rule changes that actually matter in the XFL. Everything else, can be tossed to the wayside. But the 2-minute drill, where now the clock stops after every single play inside 2 minutes at the end of the first half and also the end of the second. So whether you're running the football or it's caught and the person is tackled inbounds, no longer do you have to run to the line of scrimmage and have to take spike the ball in order to stop the clock. I love the fact that the clock is stopped and it does not start until 5 seconds after the play clock. The play clock is now at 25 rather than 40 in the NFL. But this kind of does a disservice to the teams that are in the lead, but hence the name, I believe it's called the comeback period. So if you're trailing by a couple of, touchdowns, a la, let's say the Kansas City Chiefs, if I give you a conduit for the NFL, they can score early, they can score often. If you're down by 21 and there's only 2 minutes left, guess what, buddy? You have an opportunity to make a legitimate comeback and not have to leave it all up to hopes. You can score what would usually be about a 1-minute drive. This can actually happen in 30 seconds. I love the fact that that's there. So if you're a team that has the lead, it's still an upwards battle to still walk away with the W. This leaves incentive for guys having to play. Before, if you get a first down within, inside 2 minutes and the opposing team doesn't have a timeout, game is over. Now in the XFL, if you still have over a minute and 12 seconds, the defense, if they have timeouts, they are still in it. If they're trailing, of course. If they have the lead, then they just got to continue and get a stop. So I really do like that inside 2 minutes. And now for the other, production quality, I'm a fan of the sideline interviews. My only issue is, for example, in the DC Defenders taking on the Seattle Dragons game, immediately after the pick 6 from the DC Defenders, there was a microphone in the face of the man who caught the pick 6. Don't put the mic in front of somebody's face when they just reached the end zone. Like, give it a couple of plays and then go and interview them. Now, granted, if it's a defensive touchdown, you only have so much time because the defense will be going back onto the field. But goddamn, let them get to the sideline. And as for players that just had something bad happen, I love the fact that you have an opportunity to hear their point of view, but give them some time to decompress. The kicker just missed the kick, and within a minute and a half, you had the microphone, hey, so what happened with that missed kick? Like, I love the transparency here, but emotions are going to be high. If a team is getting blown out by 40, don't stick a mic in front of the, the losing, coach's face during the game. You're not going to get the kind of language that you want on national television, hence to why you did see a little bit of a kerfuffle, a brouhaha, a skirmish taking place on the field, and when the player was coming off the field, they say, hey, what was going on with this little bit of shoving between yourself and the other player? He's like, hey man, we're just trying to do our fucking job, and you heard it and they bleeped it out way too late. So in this case, you got to be a little bit conscientious in how you plan to go and interview other people. But for the most part, I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed this inaugural weekend of the XFL. I think they're doing things right. I'm not a big fan, there's another thing. I'm not a big fan of the broadcasting of the play calling. All right, so if you happen to be a executive or a GM or one of those individuals affiliated with other teams, all you have to do is just take note of what play was just said, review what they ran on the field, and now because they have the live feed of the game and they're repeating the play over and over, you can just relay that to your defensive coordinator. They can relay that to, the linebacker who most likely has the radio, and all of a sudden they know the play that's coming. They understand the alignment, assignment, and responsibility of their adversaries, and all of a sudden, bam, it looks like you graduated from New England Patriot University. All right, so I'm not a big fan of, the broadcasting of the play, but nonetheless, I expect them to advance, and, they're trying different stuff out. But thus far, I enjoy the product. Let me know what you guys think of the inaugural week of the XFL. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think it could stand the test of time? Because when we talk about the AAF and why they went defunct, it came down to funding. In the case of Vince McMahon, he's got a boatload of cash, and he's got investors, and he's got people who believes in him. So funding will not be the reason for the XFL's failing. I do not foresee that happening. It'll come down to on-the-field product. And if they continue to go out here and play games the way that they played it, I think they'll be around for a little bit. All right, hopefully they can go and expand. But let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of the XFL. I thoroughly enjoyed it.